Perfect love casts out fear. God so loved the world. I've only mentioned a few, a couple of handsful. It's all over the place. When I bow my knees before the Father asking for the strengthening of Valley Church, I'm asking him to do unimaginable things. This is not something that the right amount of obedience guarantees. This is a work of God in my heart and in your heart, and I'm asking him to so implant love in your hearts, to so elevate love for God and real people that you would be love in real life. That's what I long for you and all of the people in our churches, all 55 of them around our district. Unimaginable? Kind of is. I know myself too well. It kind of is. But I'm imagining that for you right now and for me, and my Father has said he's doing something well beyond my imagination. And it actually is really fun to connect with people on this level. You might be surprised. So, to wrap this whole thing up, I want to ask you a couple of questions. Number one, who are you going to love? Who are you going to love? Okay, but who? So I want a face to come up into your mind's eye right now. Is there a face? Is there a face? Who are you going to love? Is there a face of somebody you're going to love? Now let's go with that person who is, let's just skip to the end of this whole thing, the most difficult person you know to love. That person. I saw somebody point to their wife, I think, a second ago. But that was a second ago. Not now. Not this one. Okay, not the most difficult, but who is that? I want their name on the tip of your tongue. I want you to think and love about that person through the rest of the time that we spend together right now. So I want to give you a little bit of a test. Just use a relevant illustration of today for thinking this through a little bit. How are you doing over this Independence Day, kind of long 4-day weekend of celebration? How you doing here on this? We're in a very fascinating season of American life right now. I'm fascinated by, you all hold a 501c3 of tax exemption. You're right with the IRS, right? You know that. You're like a national organization. You're under our governmental system as a church. Been for 40 years. You're celebrating 40 years on the same day, same weekend that our country's celebrating 243 years of national and political freedom and liberty, right? And of course, we're celebrating 40 years of true freedom, liberty in Christ, life, hope, and it's got eternal significance connected to it, whereas any nation will fall. It's just a matter of time. We know that about history, right? So it's all temporary anyhow. So how are you doing over this weekend when in fact we've got this big old national thing going on, and yet we're contemplating what it means to actually maybe not argue so much about that with people with whom we disagree? Is that even possible in our culture anymore? But perhaps if we get to that point, if we recognize what we're doing, and we see that there is this energy that's required to argue and win our case and be right and point out wrong and make sure people know where we stand, and the energy that goes into that, if perhaps we just took all of that energy and instead just brought it over here to invest in actually loving that very person with whom we disagree. Wow. What might happen next? I mean, right after you exchange the one for the other, what might happen? Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness. So it's an unimaginable thing. And I'm asking God that you might be love, live in love, work in love, play in love, worship in love, fall in love with the people on your pathway. And how beautiful and how marvelous that would be that over the next 40 years you would become a group, a church with a reputation for loving people most unlike you. I want you to bow your heads as you contemplate that thought. Because, of course, when finally your neighbor loves you back, you will have become like Jesus, the friend of sinners, right? Can you imagine that? This is the unimaginable thing, the incomprehensible thing that God is doing in you. He is doing it deep. He is doing it. So if it sounds or feels intimidating, I want you to let go of that. As I said, you get to be yourself. And in fact, God is doing something beyond you. You can be assured of that. And it's not for everybody in the world. It's just for that person on your pathway at the moment. And we enter the journeys of people and their process, right? And we're at a pinpoint of their process. We don't have any idea what brought them to that point. We don't know where they're going. We may never even see them again. But in that pinpoint of a moment on their journey, we might even become best friends. But in that moment, we're just going to be love. We're going to be the living embodiment of a loving God. So, Father, would you do this incredible work in our hearts? And would you invite us and give us then the strength and the focus and the presence of mind to continue on this pathway? That we might walk with you in discipleship, and Father, would you change the way we see people? Would you change our decisions about moving toward and into the lives of people? Would you give us that freedom in our spirit